The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Do I look like a man who's having fun? Yes, I do. I'm having fun. Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, March 26, 2025. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, I think, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, I think. And here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I am Jim Peters, and you are watching another edition of Jim Peters at Night, and I lost track of the count, but I think this is episode number 214, if I'm correct. I figured that out. And the reason I said I'm not sure of the time is because daylight savings time completely screws this up. And, you know, in the hierarchy of things I have to do during the day, checking on whether that's right or not is not at the top of the list. It just isn't. But I'll tell you what is at the top of the list. Our guest tonight, Larry Newman, president of the Missouri Bail Bondsman Association and certified registered Bigfoot investigator. Our friend, he's joining us, got a lot to talk about. He's live, and because of that, you can call in. 325-CALL-JIM, 325-225-5546. Numbers on the bottom of the screen right here. You can call in, and you can text us to 408-458-5088. We got it going on. The pervy old boomer guy said, as his wife said, cut that out. And she's serious. Now, tomorrow night, we're doing our last of 3 Thursday night interviews with Lee Richardson, the founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. She has her upcoming book coming out, Crisis Brains is called, and we've done 2 interviews on her book the last 2 Thursdays, and the last one is tomorrow night, and tomorrow night, too, the previous 2 were pre-recorded. This one we're doing live, and we're taking your questions. If you have questions about her book in particular, I mean, she's a registered psychotherapist. I mean, the woman's, she's a doctor. Actually is. I think she's a medical doctor. I'm not sure, but she's a doctor, Dr. Richardson. You can call in with your questions or ask her stuff because you don't want to ask me because I don't know. But I'm more than happy to tell you. Even though I don't know crap, you know that. So call in and talk to Larry if you want, or after that, we got some UFO news as usual. Now, because Larry's on, we're going to be talking at the end of our little talk with him. We got some Bigfoot news too. We're going to go over a lot of stuff going on in Pennsylvania, God knows, and Larry's aware of that. But before that, we're going to run a commercial as we do here, and you will stay tuned to listen to Larry in about 60 seconds. Stay tuned here. Hi all, Jim Peters again for Conk News. Let me tell you one of the greatest things about Conk News. It's free. It's completely and totally free. You don't need to register. You don't need to log in, subscribe, none of that stuff. Sure, they run a few ads on the front page, but if you're an old fogey like me, you might actually appreciate this because when you check out Conk News at conk.com, you'll probably notice that it's the closest thing to an old-fashioned hard copy newspaper that you'll find online. The latest up-to-the-minute news from 75 high-quality sources collected every 3 hours, all laid out with photos and headlines directly from the articles. And when you click on a story, you go directly to that story. No ad page, no interstitial page, none of that stuff. This is the way online news is meant to be. And did I mention that it's completely free? Seriously, how much of the stuff in America is free now, right? That's of quality anyway. So check this out for yourself. It's at conk.com, CONK.com. Conk News. Joining us from his home in Joplin, Missouri, or thereabouts, Bigfoot hunter extraordinaire, bail bondsman extraordinaire, and good all-time Joe, or I should say Larry here. Larry Newman's here. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hello, how's everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. Call up and ask and tell us how you're doing, guys.
Yeah,
We do that. Yeah. Larry will answer your questions about anything. Me, I don't know too much. Hey, Larry, I actually have a question here. So, you do bail bond stuff, of course. I never asked you how many people, what percentage of people skip out on their bail?
Less than 1% with us.
Is that because they know that you're serious?
Well, we work with them, and yes, we take care of them, maintain contact, make sure they show up to court, give them rides if they need to. We just make sure that they go to court. We do risk assessments prior to the bond, so if they're a flight risk or a risk to the public, then we won't even consider.
And how many people fall into that category? How many people do you think are risks?
Well, there's probably half the people we get a call from. We end up not taking the risk.
Half? Really?
Yeah, probably.
My God. And then, of course, if people do go rogue, you basically have kind of carte blanche to do whatever you needed to get them, right?
Well, we have to follow the state laws, and there's state laws that oversee what we do. But yes, we will find them and get them into custody and return them to the jurisdiction.
Okay, but my impression is that because you're not actual law enforcement, the rules are significantly more relaxed for you than, for example, the police. Is that true?
No, that's false. We have a stricter set of rules that we have to go by. We can not just do whatever we want to. We have to follow the rules, and the U.S. Supreme Court had set up the rules for us many years ago, and we have to follow those, plus the state laws that we have, and the state and local laws. So yeah, we've got a lot of hoops to jump through.
Shall I assume that you catch the vast majority of people that go on the lam?
Yes, we locate them and either take them into custody or work with law enforcement to get them into custody and return back. But like I said, with our risk assessment and the knowledge of the people that we have in our area, that we have very few of those.
Because if someone actually does truly skip out and successful at it, you're up for the money, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this is a fantastic segue because I'm good at this. I don't know if you saw the front page of Conk News during the commercial, and I want to remind folks the front page is Conk News in real time. So there's a story there. There's a picture of Christy Noeb, and it says she will hunt you down. I'm just sitting here as a senior citizen. I'm thinking, God, I hope she does.
I totally believe her when whatever she says. She's known for following and keeping her word.
I know that. Okay, so let's talk about the news because I tell you, I don't know. I got to mention this thing about the Signal chat, because the thing is, in my mind, this is a non-story. This is just bullshit, and I don't know if the news is just run out of stuff to report or what the deal is. But okay, they got all their undies all in the bundle because this guy was accidentally cut in on this chat, and I have to give the Trump administration credit. They admitted it. I think that's really important because for the last 4 years, all we've heard is every single denial you can imagine. And he the president up to it said, yeah, we screwed up, and so there's no story here. And yet, the Democrats are calling for everybody's head on a guillotine.
Yeah, and they don't really know yet. They're still researching it. They don't know exactly how that reporter got in that chat. But yes, they've taken responsibility, come out and said, yeah, we screwed up. We're researching why it happened, how it happened, and it's our fault. So yeah, they're taking responsibility, which is very unusual because you just don't hear that from politicians.
No, you don't. I know, it's very refreshing. And I think that actually trumps anything, no pun intended, anything else that the other side could do right now. I really do. It's just the fact that he just said, yeah, we screwed up,
Yeah, but let's look at the thing in total. Okay, so we don't know how that reporter's phone number got in that chat. That's the thing that they're researching. We're trying to figure that out. Okay. They don't know. They're working on it. They will find out how that number got in there. The second thing is let's look at the ethics of the reporter. If he got that, didn't know it was coming, if he got that and looked at it, okay, you and I, as ethical people, the first thing we would have done would call up wherever this came from and say, hey, you guys have messed up. I got this and I probably shouldn't have gotten it. Okay. And the second thing is he should have said, there you go. I will not say anything and I will bury this and not report it. Okay. Ethically, he should have deleted it and left it alone. But he wasn't ethical.
And that's why we talk to you, because I have to admit that never occurred to me, and you're absolutely right. An ethical person would have actually said, hey, I don't think I belong here. Somebody screwed up and just exited. That's what a person of any credence would have done. And this guy's a scumbag and he didn't do that. That's right. Yeah.
And so my suggestion, this is my personal opinion, but the Atlantic should be barred from any attendance in any kind of presidential news information, barred from the White House. Like they don't need, if they can't be ethical, then they don't need to be there. So they should lose that privilege.
Well, you're a professional investigator, and I can't remember who I heard say this, but somebody said that based on the facts and circumstances offhand, it appears probable that somebody did this on purpose, that somebody cut this guy into the chat on purpose. Well, that would be one of the underlings of the other people that were on there, probably. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Well, that's possible, but it's still under investigation, and they still don't know or haven't revealed just exactly how this happened. So it would be wrong to comment on how it happened. Yes, it was a mistake, or someone intentionally did it, but it still goes, even if he was accidentally put in there, it's still the ethical thing would be for him to call up whoever sent out the chat and said, hey, I got this by mistake. You need to fix the numbers, and I'm not going to report it.
And you know why I'm smiling? Because I'm sitting here thinking, Larry, I have a whole empire here built on speculation.
Well, and you and I can speculate, and we can think, and we can, my investigator.
I ask you to speculate,
Yeah, I look at all the evidence.
Your opinion here is valuable. That's why I look at it.
You look at all the evidence, and then you look at what the possibilities could be, and you go from there. But it still comes back to, if he was an ethical person, he would have not told anybody about it.
And the only thing I can comment here with any expertise at all is the actual technology behind the Signal app. And the reason the government uses it is because the encryption on it is considered basically ironclad. And I'm listening to Sean Hannity this afternoon driving around the car, and someone on there is talking about the fact, well, the Chinese have hacked this. No, actually, no, they haven't. And that's if the Chinese had hacked it, it wouldn't be automatically included in the regular government classification kit. I mean, right. Correct. So no, there's nothing wrong with the technology here at all. This was a deliberate act. Somebody did not hack in unless somebody has a stupid password, which is amazing. It's amazing how often that happens. But the problem isn't the technology. It isn't. I can vouch for that.
Correct. And the text turned out to be non-classified, so there was no classified information released to sources that shouldn't have it. So, unlike, Hillary did, but
yeah, well, that's the thing. Don't we have a non-story here? And I'm holding kind of the conservative media on the coals on this too. I don't know if it's a slow news day or what the hell it is, but there's nothing going on here. I mean, you got the Biden administration. They completely screwed up Afghanistan. You got people falling off of airplanes. I mean, just the most incompetent stuff imaginable. And here, one person screwed up one little thing, and you think the world was going to end,
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the last 66 days, okay? It's incredible the amount of good that's been done in the last 66 days. Who
Yeah.
would have imagined that we could have accomplished this much in 66 days? And so, they're straining and scratching the ground, like a bunch of chickens, trying to find some little kernel of something to throw at Trump. And this is the best they got. They're in real bad shape.
Well, they're in real bad shape, and I want to get to that. But the thing is, I do want to get. I think when you were last on a month ago, and it all kind of blends together after a while, Larry. But I think you actually said, and because I remember agreeing with you, you said people are bound to. They're doing so much that mistakes are bound to happen, and that's right. That they just are. You can't play a perfect football game. You're going to throw in an interception. You're going to. It's like, and so. I compare that with 4 years of complete and utter incompetence. And then people are saying, well, my God, he threw an interception. And it's like, oh, that's terrible. Let's pull him out of the game. Bullshit.
The only way that you cannot make a mistake is to stand perfectly still.
Yeah, that's right.
And, that's not happening here.
No, not at all. No.
But the mistake, the gravity of this mistake is minimal, but it's a small mistake, and they're building a mountain out of a molehill because they've got nothing else to jump on,
and they don't. And that's part of the seriously, they're going down in flames. What do you say here? And the real amazing thing is now AOC and Bernie Sanders are out on this tour, and it's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, are you? But what else can you do to alienate the voters?
Okay, if AOC and Bernie Sanders are the best that they've got to put up front, then why even consider them? They're not. They don't have anything.
And, no, but they're not in first place. In first place is Jasmine Crockett, who more than one outlet has said is the new future of the Democratic Party. And I'm thinking, yeah, you take that. You go run with that.
Well, now we're going back to ethics, morals. Every time she opens her mouth, she runs herself down. And I'm sorry. I don't disrespect anybody, but she's just, if that's all they can do is curse and swear, that's it. That's all they've got.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too,
I'm sorry.
and I'm not the only person saying this, and that is at this point with all these bombings, all these Tesla dealerships and everything, somebody really has to address the fact that the Democrats are basically calling for violence by avoiding the topic and not saying anything. They are tacitly acknowledging it getting so bad. Someone has to stand up and say enough, or at least point and say, no, you're guilty. Don't you think?
Well, yeah. Just to stand up and say nothing. Yes. You should come out and demand that people behave and not commit acts of crime. But then you've got these Democrats calling for April 29th and a day across the world against Tesla. They're promoting the violence and the destruction. They're actively promoting. They're not just standing back and not saying anything. They're actively promoting the violence.
No, but Larry, I don't have to tell you. They always qualify it. Like, we're gonna have a day against Tesla, but don't do any violence. Oh,
yeah, I know.
Right.
I know. Yeah, we went through that in 2020, didn't we?
That's right. It's like the hypocrisy of it. I just find just astonishing, just amazing.
Yeah,
you're right.
And you know that personally there in Minneapolis. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a story on Hot Air tonight. I barely got a chance to read any of it about the fact that, and it specifically had to do with Minnesota about Tim Walz's ties to China, about how they have their basically their tentacles into the University of Minnesota, or China does anyway. And like, does that surprise me? No. No, because China's everywhere. I don't even know if it has anything to do with Tim Walz. It's like I don't think we're ever going to get these people out of our system. When I mean these people, I mean the Chinese.
Well, we've had them in our system for so many years, and not just the last 4, but we're going back 15 years. When these people were invited in to start infiltrating these universities, and it's no surprise that they're there. It's no surprise that they're embedded. It's no surprise that they have worked their way into the top echelon in these universities. So no, we've known it for a long time, and nobody stepped up and said enough's enough and stop.
And why didn't anybody, it's like, okay, like, what, how, what am I thinking? The old phrase about, how could anything possibly go wrong? It's like, yeah. So you got your Chinese kids working on nuclear fusion in your university. My God, I wonder what could happen with that.
Well, look at Colombia. Colombia rakes in billions, and with a B, billions with a B, from countries across the world, and they're the U.S. government is giving them $17 million a year of our taxpayer money. Why are we doing that?
Yeah,
Why
well,
are we funding these universities when they're taking billions from places like Iran and Saudi Arabia and all these other countries across the world? No, the taxpayers need to keep their money in their pocket.
Well, and that's the thing, Larry. Supposedly, ostensibly, it's for quote unquote research. And then I'm listening to Trump on his his basically what's now become his daily press conference, and he's talking about the CHIPS Act that Biden put in, and he said the exact same thing I've always thought. It's not that that act is bad per se; it was completely unnecessary. You're talking they gave money to an industry that is rife with cash. These people did not need any money at all. They didn't.
Correct.
So what's the point of giving it to them? Well, I can think of 2 points. You're either stupid or influence, one or the other, because they don't need the money, and like Trump, it's very, he's talking about AI, and AI is, I mean, these are some of the richest companies in the world. They do not need the money. Why are we giving them money?
Waste, fraud, and abuse. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And you've got a president. The first 4 years he was in office, he never took a penny in salary. He's not taking any money now. You've got Elon Musk come in, volunteered, taking no money to come in and research and find all the waste, fraud, and abuse that of our tax dollars. Who in the world would think that that's bad? Unless you are on the receiving
Oh,
end,
right. Right.
Stacey Abram in Georgia's got $2 billion.
Yeah, for a company that like was 2 years old and had 100 or 2 months old and had $100 in their bank account.
Yeah.
She got a $2 billion grant. It's unbelievable. I mean,
Mhm.
mind-boggling. And
But they say that that wasn't her. It was just she's connected with it in some way. Excuse me. How many companies does she have to buffer herself for the money to flow to her?
also
That's
it's
it.
$2 billion.
$2 billion
people throw these numbers
to
around like
startup.
they mean nothing. A startup for $2 billion. They had $100 and they got $2 billion from the government. I mean, mind-boggling, unbelievable. And the thing is, if you look at the polls, there's very little that the administration is doing right now on any front that's polling badly. I can't really even think of anything. And I don't know if you saw this. The most amazing thing that they're polling best on is this thing about the transgender women and girls sports. Believe it or not, that the public really dislikes this way more than the Democrats ever thought.
Well, sure they do. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense in any dimension, and so, and this is the thing, and like I say, I go back to my investigator, law enforcement training. When the people start screaming the loudest, you better look under the rock, because if who would be complaining about the government saving billions of dollars on waste, fraud, and abuse if you're not skimming some of that yourself? Why would you complain about it unless it's hitting your own pocketbook? So every one of them that come out and they say, "Oh, this can't happen, this can't happen," they're receiving that money somewhere, somehow.
You know, we've talked about this before. It doesn't surprise me at all that the government is wasting boatloads of money. I was really surprised at how much. I have to say, it's like some of the stuff. Well, just the thing you just brought up just now. So you got a company that's 2 months old. It's basically only exists on paper. They have $100 in their bank account, and they were given $2 billion, and that's one single example. I mean, one example out of thousands. And then you multiply that by thousands, and well, $1 or $2 billion becomes $2 trillion. And the next thing you know, you're running $37 trillion in debt. It's not, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out.
Well, let's go back to the very first impeachment of Donald Trump. He was impeached because they did not like his phone call to Ukraine when he first got in office. Okay. They screamed and hollered and impeached him because of that, because it was improper. And the part of it that they complained about was the fact that he was going to send somebody over there to look into the fraud and the stealing that was being done by Burisma, who Joe Biden's son was a board member.
Yeah.
So from the very beginning, they have gone after this man because he's threatening their undercover money.
Yeah.
From the get-go. So here we got Ukraine. We've spent $350 billion over there, okay, giving it to them. All right. Now, the European Union countries have given a lot of money, but they didn't give it. They loaned it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a big difference here. Okay.
Right.
So I want somebody to track that $350 billion and see where it went. Okay. I want to know where that $350 billion went. My suspicion, in my opinion, is it boomeranged around 3 or 4 or 5 different companies and came right back to the DNC.
Yeah. That's my suspicion too. And I love it when you speculate. It gives me a warm feeling in my tummy.
Well, I got no evidence to that, but common sense has to rule. And let's look at all of the people complaining that he was going to stop this war. Well, if he stops the war, he stops the flow of money.
Right.
So why would you complain about him stopping a war unless it's going to hit your pocketbook?
Well, okay, but all right. So, but I'm really serious about this. You said on one hand you have no evidence, but at some point, doesn't common sense have to prevail? It's the old Occam's razor thing. The most logical thing, obvious thing that happened is probably true.
You have to look at the evidence. You look at the evidence that you do have, okay, and then you have to extrapolate to be able to follow that investigation to look and see if that in fact has happened. That's how you develop sources to look at, to investigate, to follow the money. So it makes sense. We can sit here and speculate. It's just our thoughts, but in an investigation, you have to start somewhere. So you take what evidence you have, look at it, and you develop a theory and you pursue that and you investigate it to see if that theory holds water. That's just how it works.
No, I understand that. I'm almost playing devil's advocate here, but the thing is, this is not a criminal trial per se. We're trying to figure out where money went, and it's pretty obvious that, to me, the most likely scenario is the one you described about the fact that it got bounced around and it ended up back at the DNC, and that's pretty much what I think too. And the thing is, you're right. We can sit here and say, well, we think that, and we're speculating, but it is the most. It's based on motivation. What do you guys usually call motive means an opportunity, right?
Right.
You use those 3 things, and that's the most obvious answer.
Well, let's say if Jim Peters was a representative in Congress. And I come out and I said, I am going to save your constituents $100 billion by stopping this war. Why would you complain about that? Why would you be against that? Why would Jim Peters not want that for his constituents and for the people of the United States to save that money and not spend it?
Well, obviously,
there's only one reason.
That's right. There is only one reason. Yeah.
Okay? And it may not be criminal yet, but that's why they're screaming so loud. They want him to stop because it will end up being criminal.
Yeah. Well, also just the fact that gravy train stops, there's that too, you know.
Correct.
Right.
So, it may not be criminal yet, but the dust is just starting to rise.
I mean, you're talking about Burisma. Hunter Biden's already bitching about the fact that he's broke. And the thing, this guy's such a dirtbag. I really need to, I use that term very precisely here because he has made so much money over the last 10 years. I mean, that's well documented, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And apparently it went all up his nose and into his hoo-ha. It's like he has none of it left. Well, screw you. It's like, I mean, one that, seriously, if you're smart enough to actually like be able to bamboozle that sort of money and do it maybe more or less like not illegally, you should have the gumption and foresight to save some of it.
Jim, did you hear what you said? If he's smart enough, he's not smart enough. So, okay, yeah, right. I mean, obviously, so he wasn't in charge. So who was?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
There's another direction for investigation.
Yeah. Well, that's a legitimate investigation because I don't think there's anybody. I don't know if there's an obvious party or parties here that were running the Biden presidency because it's obvious now that it wasn't Joe. I mean, that's the only thing that is obvious. Joe wasn't really doing it.
I'm sorry, but to my way of thinking, that if the U.S. government spends $100, they better know where it went and be able to prove it.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, absolutely.
The volume of money is phenomenal, but if you spend $100 of taxpayer money, you better be able to prove what you spent it on and where it went and how it was used after it left your hands.
The fact that we sent this money to Ukraine and didn't even demand an accounting for it, I just think is abominable. It's not even that they don't.
That's another. There's another motive.
Yeah, they never even like set it up. They never asked ahead of time to have it documented. They just, well, here it is. Do what you want.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's so blatant, but and like I said, the final evidence I have not seen, but common sense has to dictate some things. So why are they screaming about cutting spending on waste and fraud?
Yeah,
there is no reason a U.S. congressman or senator would have one word negative to say about saving their taxpayer dollars for their constituents.
Yeah. Both government and now private industry is starting to catch up to a concept I came up with about 30 years ago. And then 30 years ago, I was predicting that people are going to start to discover, and this maybe is not a good thing for the country, but people are going to start to discover that companies can run very, very efficiently with relatively few people. And that goes for the government too. And so, Trump is actually talking about now, about the possibility of eliminating the income tax altogether. And I think if you got the number of employees down in the government, I think maybe there's a possibility you could either do that or come close to it. But the thing is, I mean, I've always said this, Larry, and you've dealt with enough organizations. There's like 2.1 million people, non-military, employed by the federal government of the U.S. I think you could do the whole thing with 1/10 of that. 90% of those people are probably not necessary. And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why you need a CEO sitting in the seat of the president and not a politician.
Yeah. And then,
That it doesn't make sense to have a politician, a lifelong politician, as president of the United States, overseeing the spending of all this money. He doesn't know how to operate it. A CEO knows how to pare things down, make it run efficiently with less people, bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars in new infrastructure and new jobs and new manufacturing, high paying jobs that these people can immediately run from the government and get a better job in the private sector.
and then what do you say about all these judges? Now, I just read this today. I did not know this was true. That, so I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, well, how does what are there's like 17 federal districts or something like that? How does
Yeah.
some federal judge somewhere have the ability to stop the president from doing anything? But it turns out, and I think this is about 30 years ago, the Congress passed a law that up till then, you had to actually, the court you approached had to actually have some vested interest in what the president was, what people was being objected to. In other words, what if the president was doing something and signed an executive order, it had to have a direct consequence in the district that federal judge is sitting in. But the Congress passed a law about 30 years ago eliminating that. And so now any judge anywhere can basically stop the president from doing anything. And that's absurd. That's ridiculous.
Well, now you're talking about something that I deal with every day. We're talking about judges.
Okay.
Okay. And I work in the criminal justice system. That's my bailiwick. That's where I work. Okay. And I've sat and watched the criminal justice system absolutely turned on its head because the George Soros organization has infiltrated the courts and absolutely decimated criminal justice and the federal courts also. Yes, it used to be that you had to have standing, what they call standing.
Right.
You have to have a reason and a personal loss to be able to bring a court case. Well, now we've just flooded the doors with anybody can sue anybody for anything, and now it's gone federal. Any judge anywhere who's had a bad day, you can get him to do anything, and that's what we're seeing. It's total mess. They don't have the constitutional authority to do what they're doing. But the justice system over the period of 50, 60 years has gotten away from the Constitution. We go to a court who makes a ruling that is contrary to the Constitution. If that ruling is not contested, then that becomes the law of the land. Okay, it's called precedent.
Yeah.
All right. So precedent is opposed to constitutionality. And we've started this precedent thing that judges can rule one way or another. It may not be constitutional, but if it's not challenged, then it becomes the law of the land, and that's what all the attorneys refer to and judges look to is this precedent that was set. So that's happening in this federal court system, just like it does in the criminal justice system. That's why we've had, just this week, we had a person that was charged with assault on an infant, broke 6 bones in the infant's body, was arrested, taken to jail, and the judge says, "Oh, well, I'll just let you go home. You get out for free." And that's basically it. So, I mean, things have just gotten so out of whack. But the court system, we're in Missouri where we are 75% Republican and nearly all of the office holders are Republican, but the Supreme Court justices are all liberal Democrats. And so we have seen the decimation of the criminal justice in the state, where criminals are just pat on the hand, turn them loose, back out on the street, and so
Larry,
it's going on across the country.
in Missouri, are the Supreme Court justices elected or appointed?
No, they are under what's called the Missouri Plan. Many years ago, they thought this was a good way to go. The Missouri Bar Association in Missouri selects a candidate, and they send that candidate to the governor to be appointed to the Supreme Court. If that candidate is too liberal for the governor to appoint, the governor can decline. But the previous governor, the retired governor now, told me personally, face to face, he said, Larry, if I decline that nominee that the Bar Association sends me, he said, they're going to send me one that's worse, and it's not going to end. So my hands are tied. So that the Missouri Plan is a terrible, terrible way to go. Indiana had picked it up, and they're already getting rid of it. So in Missouri, particularly, we have a very, very bad way of selecting Supreme Court judges. There is movement in Missouri legislature to change that.
How long's that been going on?
Oh, probably 25 or 30 years.
It seems extremely undemocratic. It's you couldn't do it worse.
Yeah, you know? It's not. I mean, well, let's look at the U.S. Supreme Court, where the president at the time selects a candidate and submits it to the Senate for approval. That's the way we need to do it in Missouri.
Yeah,
like we could fix this in a hurry, but the judges, the Missouri Supreme Court judges who make up the rules that the local attorneys have to use, will come out with rules saying, "Oh no, you need to be more lenient. You need to let these people go for free, let them back out on the street," and the judges, local judges, have their hands tied. They can't do anything about it. And so it's very, very restrictive, and it's not a good way to run a criminal justice system.
And you're talking about George Soros too. And I've asked this question many times, and I'm actually, it's not rhetorical. I'm serious about this. What are these people trying to accomplish? I don't understand. I don't understand what Soros is trying to accomplish. I don't understand what these liberal justices are trying to accomplish, letting these criminals out on the street. I do not get it. I mean, yeah, seriously, I'm actually asking. I don't understand.
It's when you look at, you go back in history and you look at the ways that you bring down a country, okay? And when you have carnage on the streets and riots and criminals let back out on the street with no punishment, the streets become tumultuous, and fires and property damage and everything. The society just runs wild, and before long you have ended your country. That's one of the ways that you take down a country. You start out by the government taking over the health care. Then you go to the government taking over the education system. They take over your children. Then it's carnage on the streets, mayhem on the streets, and then the welfare state. Those are all prescribed. If you go back in history and look at the documents that were written on how to take down a country, that's what it is.
And speaking of that very theory, so and I was harping on this 8 years ago. So Trump gets in office in the first time, and the Democrats cause all this chaos, and then they point at him and say, "Look at all the chaos he's causing." And a lot of people just didn't catch it. A lot of people say, "Oh, Trump's causing chaos," where actually he didn't cause any of it. And now they're trying the same thing again. This time, I don't think it's working, at least not as well. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I think I think there's a higher power that's in charge, and we had to suffer 4 years of Joe Biden just for the public to learn how good Trump was and bring him back.
Yeah. And not
Without
only that, you could
without
make
those 4 years of Biden, we might not have realized just how bad of straits we were.
you can make an argument that Trump got in a way got lucky because he ran against two really bad candidates. You
Well,
know?
that also, but
Yeah, and of course,
anyway.
Biden was a candidate for a while, and now look at this. I mean, he's only been out of office, like you said, 2 months, and the Democratic Party's completely turned on him. I mean, he's offered to help raise money. They politely declined. People are saying really, really bad things about him all of a sudden in his own party about I mean, it's hard to say a good thing about him. I mean, you can just pick one. I mean, yeah, he shouldn't have ran. He said he wasn't going to run for second term when he actually, when he was elected. He's, all this stuff. And yeah, you can make he screwed it up, not just for us, but for them too. I mean, just looking at it from their point of view, I can't come up with a single good thing the guy did.
Well, look at where Trump is right now. Trump is on the 80% side of most all of these
Yes, right,
subjects.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
For all intent and purposes, Trump is in the middle.
Yeah.
Between Republican and Democrat. If you go back 25 years, Trump is basically operating as the Democratic Party used to back when John F. Kennedy was in office.
Right.
So, when you take in the vast majority of the middle of the country, you've got 60-70% of the middle philosophy, political philosophy, and you're embracing that, then the two extremes, they don't have anything.
Right.
And that's basically where we're at. You don't see any middle of the road from the Democrats anymore. They have left the middle of the country.
Yeah.
The Democrats are composed now of the extreme left fringe. That's all they've got left.
Yeah, but there's all this talk about their own civil war, and I think there's some but here's the deal, Larry, and I don't think you disagree with me on this about 20% of the Democratic Party are leftist lunatics, but they have hijacked the rest of the party, and the people that the moderate Democrats have basically allowed this to happen. Basically, now granted, they may be guilty because they allowed it to happen, but I don't think the majority of them are with that. But the fact of the matter is, this relatively small cadre of the party controls the whole thing now. It's crazy.
Well, when you look at nearly every part of the country moved red. They may still be blue counties, but in the election they moved red. It's the single biggest movement of political philosophy that we've ever seen.
Oh yeah, and also this needs to. The press didn't report on this enough, and that is last summer, for the first time possibly ever, they only kept figures till 1990, up to 1990. Basically, now there are more registered Republicans in America than Democrats for the first time ever. So it's like, yeah, and of course they got glossed over because no good media outlet wants to report on that. But that's true. You're absolutely right.
Every single county in the United States voted more Republican than they ever had. They may still have gone blue, but they moved more Republican than they ever had before.
Right.
So this is bigger than just one man. Now he's leading it, and he's out there telling everybody what what should be done, and doing what should be done. And people are going, even if they didn't like the man. I talk to people, well, I don't like him, but he is doing a good job.
Yeah, that's right. Not only that, Larry, the polling indicates that. I mean, like you said, he's leading on virtually every issue. And yet the last poll I saw a couple weeks ago, they asked the public, do you like him? And 50% said no. So you're right. People are admitting the fact that I may not like him personally, but I like what he's doing, When
you find someone who is very wealthy, and spends a tremendous amount of money having to defend himself for doing the right thing, and knowing that he's going to have to spend a lot more money doing the right thing, and still gives all of his income away to charity when he does do the right thing, that's something they can't argue with. They can make up stuff, but
Right.
they can't factually argue.
Oh, and they
And that's
do.
the
They do make
problem.
stuff.
They don't factually, they don't have anything factual that they can glom onto. And that's why the last 2 days over this text thing, they thought they had the golden ticket, and they made it out to be something that it wasn't, because they had to have something.
Yeah.
And it's gone away. It's done and over. They apologized for making a mistake. We don't know how yet that it all happened, but there was no classified information there. So here we go.
Well, like I said, and like you said, even if you play it, even if you win the football game by massive numbers, that doesn't mean you didn't throw an interception.
Right.
So
I mean, think back to if you have an argument and somebody's lying to you, they're lying. They know they're lying, but they still are going to argue. I go back to basic marketing. I spent 50 years dealing with the public. I go back to basic marketing. 30% of the people are going to believe anything you tell them, even if they know it's a lie.
right, that's right.
That's just herd mentality. That's just the way it is. Okay. So figure on that every single time. 30% of the people are going to believe anything they're told, even if they know it's a lie, and they will argue for it.
Right.
So,
I know. That's always constantly fascinated me, that people argue for stuff that they know isn't true, but whatever, it's like, I don't know. I tell you what, let's close out here with some Bigfoot news. Okay.
Okay.
11 miles north of Boulder, Colorado, a woman who's lived on her property for 52 years, never seen anything like this. She sees an 8-foot tall creature covered with fur walk across her lawn.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. And this has been getting a lot of press. Stan Gordon's been talking about this a lot. In Center County, Pennsylvania. Oh, the previous one, that was March 12th. So it was only like a few days ago. February 19th in Center County, Pennsylvania, just north of State College, a guy sees Bigfoot, caught him right in his headlights, just hiding, jumped out from behind a tree. So people are still going to tell me, I'm still going to have friends tell me Bigfoot isn't real. So
we had one of my investigators here in Missouri. She just talked to a lady yesterday who told her that they are on her property every year about around the 1st of April. They come through and they stay all summer, and then they're gone. And that yesterday she had a rock thrown at her when she was in her garden.
Yeah.
From the woods, and they're yelling at her. This happens every day. People across the United States and Canada see these things every single day, and people laugh at them, and so nobody says anything.
Yeah. And
but they're there.
It needs to be pointed out, you're right. There's a bunch of people who they see Bigfoot on their property regularly, like, several times a week. And this goes on for for a 3-month period for years and years. I mean, where this becomes a common thing. And yet we still have people telling us it's not real.
Yeah, I'm in Missouri, so you have to show me. So when I started my investigations, I had a very skeptical eye coming from law enforcement and from Missouri. And so I go out and I interview these people, and I'm trying to determine if they're telling me the truth or not about what they saw. So then I go follow up and I go look for the evidence to back up what they tell me. Well, it didn't take very long before I'm finding the evidence out on my own without their help to back up what they're telling me. So then when when we saw them and got some video of them, that pretty well sealed the deal for me. We've got some people in northern Missouri that contacted us recently, and I'm talking recently. Yeah, they've been here all the time for the 20 years that we've lived on this property. And yeah, come on up, and yeah, we see them regularly and we hear them all the time, and that that is just so common that people see them all the time. I don't know what else to tell people that say, oh, they're not real. Well, have you seen one? No. Well, you haven't been outside very much.
Larry,
All I can tell you, you haven't been in the woods.
is there any like, okay, so we should point out you're an investigator for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, which,
Yes.
as an analogy, is kind of the MUFON of Bigfoot, kind of sort of Sasquatch.
Correct. Yeah. Matt
Yeah.
Moneymaker started this back in the 90s. And like I've said before, I've got my hats off to him because he set up a website where you can, if you see something, you can go on and make a report, but that report does not get published until an investigator investigates your report and confirms that you had an actual sighting or had a class C, which is you heard them or found footprints. So those reports on the bfro.net don't happen until it's confirmed that it's legitimate.
Yeah, and also I should point out that he actually personally did the investigation about the one in Boulder, Colorado on March 12th. He did that himself. So he's still out in the field doing that.
Oh, he's still doing it. Yeah. We have myself and another investigator here in Missouri. We have 3 expeditions coming up. One in Missouri, one in Arkansas, and one in Oklahoma. You can go on to bfro.net and you look at open expeditions where the public can sign up to go, and you'll come and learn a tremendous amount in 3 days. We have investigators from all over the country and people coming from everywhere, and you can sit and learn a tremendous amount about these animals. So our time of the year is cranking up and getting busy.
I was going to ask you, is there any good estimation now of how many Sasquatch beings there are in the United States? Do you know?
We've had this discussion before, Jim, and I can estimate, just looking at the number of reports and the locations and the reports at the same time, and then our field expeditions where we located them, pick a spot on the map, we go there, and all of a sudden all the local people are saying, yeah, they're here. And so I had always thought, an estimation of 500 animals in Missouri, but it may be closer to 1,000. Now, you look at areas like Ohio and Pennsylvania that are heavily populated with people, and the number of sightings in Ohio and Pennsylvania are through the roof. Well, when you've got more people, you're going to have more sightings, and people are becoming more apt to talk about it.
Is that because there's more people to see Bigfoot, or because there's more Bigfoot in that area?
That's a good question. That's a very interesting concept to try to pursue. I don't know. There's more people, and I think people are losing their fear of talking about it.
Yeah.
And so your reports are going up. And I've told you before, in my experience out here talking to people, for every report that we get, there's probably 30 people that have a face-to-face encounter that have never talked about it or reported it to anybody.
Right. I would guess, based on my experience with the UFOs, that 95% of the people that see a Bigfoot never tell anyone. I would say 95%. So 19 out of 20. So you take the number of reports and you multiply it by 20 times, and that's probably the actual number.
Well, and you've got a couple thousand reports every year of people saying, yeah, I saw one, and give the description. So it's, you talk to people and you talk to them and interview them, determine, and I've talked to some people who it was obvious they were making this up, but you talk to them, you decide if they're being truthful, then you follow it up with field work and gather the evidence beyond the conversation, and that's how the report gets on the website.
So, Larry, I don't know if I've ever asked you this before. What of the reports you get, what percentage do you think are bogus, either made up or people just mistaken?
Maybe 10%.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You know, or even less. But and some people, it's a mistaken identity.
Right.
You know, and you have to delve into it pretty deep before I'm going to put my name on a report and publish it. I've got to believe that that actually happened and what they're telling me is the truth.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm guessing the most common misperception is people seeing grizzly bears standing on their hind legs, right? That's probably
Well, yeah, if you got grizzly bears, but most
yeah,
of the country
right.
doesn't have grizzly bears.
That's
Most of
right.
the
A lot of
country
these
doesn't
places
have black bears. And
don't. Right.
if you've seen a black bear, people tell me I've seen black bear, and this is not a black bear.
Oh yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think they
it's
look
obvious
anything
this
like
is
at all.
not. You
Right.
know, now black bears can stand up on their hind legs, but only for a minute or two, and
Right.
they take a shuffle step or two, and that's it.
Right. They can't. Yeah.
These things walk with a regular gait, and they move fast, and they their locomotion is a lot like a human.
Yeah. That's right. I know. I just the you know I look at the number of bogus UFO reports, and at this point the UFO thing's been going on for so long that they have pretty much. I mean, we pretty much know what percentage are bogus. I mean, it's like you can just we're literally just write, as a number, just write them off. So I'm assuming I've always assumed, even though there's a lot less Bigfoot, and I also agree with you. I think it's much harder to mistake a Bigfoot. Whereas, there's stuff in the sky that people see all the time that isn't a UFO at all, So I mean, airplanes, blimps, drones, all sorts of crap, but it's like you said, people say, well, I saw a black bear, but black bears and Bigfoot don't look very much alike.
No, they don't.
They don't.
No.
They don't.
And when you talk to people who have a close up sighting, I mean within 20 feet of one, and they can describe their eyes and the hair, their teeth, everything about them in detail. And then as an investigator, you try to lead the conversation into something is not right, and people correct you, say, "No, that's not what I saw. I saw this and this." Well, now they're telling you the truth, because that suggestive tactic on a false report, it works real well, but on an actual sighting, that suggestive doesn't work at all.
Larry, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
It's been
Thank you, Jim.
always a pleasure. We solved the world's problems. People aren't listening to me, but maybe they'll listen to you. So
we hope.
You're out in the real world actually doing shit. Hey, do you still have that stogie pretty much lit up there?
Well, it's not lit, but it will be in a few minutes.
Want to show us?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were really waving it around there.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. You gotta light that back up.
I am.
And I've never asked you, what's your drink of choice? Are you a drinker?
I'm not a drinker. I don't drink.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, my wife will tell you that coffee is my drink of choice.
Well, that's not bad for you, So it's that's probably a good thing. So
yeah, coffee and water. That's about it.
My problem is, if scotch didn't have alcohol in it, I'd have six glasses a day. Unlike most people, I really, really like the taste of it. So I don't know. That's my problem. And so, yeah, I live with that. Thanks, Lair. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, you take care.
Have a great evening.
We'll see you. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about Conk News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. Conk News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but Conk News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What Conk News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. and collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to conk.com to check it out. That's conk.com, 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 Conk News. Thanks to Larry Newman there. Always great to talk to him. Yeah, so he's an investigator for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, and as I was saying, that's kind of it's the premier Bigfoot reporting outfit organization in the United States. So, in other words, if you see a Bigfoot and you decide you want to tell somebody, that's the place you should go. Just like MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, has kind of become the place where you report UFOs, especially because the government doesn't have a place. If you're a government employee or a member of the military, they have a special place you can go online where you can report a UFO, but the public can't. So that's where you go. And yeah, Larry investigates that stuff. And yeah, a lot of people see a lot of Bigfoot. That's all there is to it. At this point, I cannot. I simply can't buy the fact it's not real. Now, what it is a totally different thing. And I don't want, forgive me, I'm going to put some words in Larry's mouth. There's two schools of thought here. And I know Larry subscribes to the majority opinion, and that is it's an undiscovered primate. And so you can say, well, how could a primate be undiscovered in the 21st century? Yeah, let me tell you about this. The giant squid was rumored for 2,000 years. Sailors saw this thing and they didn't catch one until 2006, 15 years ago, or was that? Yeah, 19 years ago or something. They caught one. It took 2,000 years to catch one. So yeah, no, the fact that this thing's out hiding in the forest and we haven't got one yet does not mean it doesn't exist. Now there's a minority opinion too, and I have to tell you about that. Stan Gordon, which we alluded to because Stan is from Pennsylvania, and he's one of the people who's been touting a lot of those reports coming out of Pennsylvania. There's why I mentioned one out of a state college. There's all sorts of reports all over Pennsylvania about people seeing Bigfoot, and he has said, and I've heard this too, that a lot of people say they see a Bigfoot and they see it disappear right before their eyes. In other words, I mean, there's a famous report of a woman who opened the door of her cabin. And she said Bigfoot is standing right there, literally 6 feet away from her. And she said she had a shotgun with her because she heard some strange noises. She pulled up the shotgun, and before she could fire it, she said Bigfoot literally just vanished, disappeared right before her eyes. And Stan has gotten a lot of these reports too. He was on the show about a year ago. I'm going to try to get him back, especially because of what's going on right now. And, he says that, for lack of a better thing, there's a paranormal aspect to this. And based on the number of people that have seen Bigfoot disappear, it's hard maybe to argue with that too. But the fact is now, we can debate what these things are, but no, they definitely exist. They do. So it's just literally a matter of somebody catching one. I don't know. So yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm going to try to have Stan Gordon back on because of all the Bigfoot reports coming out of Pennsylvania where he's stationed. Now you can call me up 325-225-5546. That's 325 call Jim. And I want to remind you, you can call me at any time of the day or night. If we're not broadcasting live, you get to leave a 2-minute message at that number. And please do, so you can tell me about your lunch that you're eating in your car, or that coworker that bugs the crap out of you, or whatever you want to talk about. And now you can call me up and talk about that too. We have true open phones here. I'm not going to give you a topic of conversation, although if you want to call about some of the stuff Larry's talking about, that's great. But we will talk about absolutely anything you want. I do want to point out something here. This is actually pretty cool because our our regular caller Think called in last week to talk about all the stuff they found below the pyramids in Giza. And that finally, now a week later, that has made the mainstream news. And I got to give him credit for this because I did not. I mean, I'm reading hours of news every day, and I did not see this when he saw it. Now it's everywhere. The last 2 days, this is like broken into a major league story. But a bunch of researchers using a satellite of all things and sonar, ground penetrating sonar, say they found some really, really weird crap below the pyramids. First of all, they found these shafts that basically look like they have spiral staircases in them going down a couple thousand feet. And they say they found at the bottom of those shafts what's basically a whole city underground. Now, Think and I were talking about this. He called in about, I don't know, I think it was last Thursday, a week ago, and I reiterated this, and he agreed with me, or I agreed with him really about the fact that I have never bought the fact that people say, well, the pyramids were made by extraterrestrial bullshit. I just never bought that about that because yeah, it's a ridiculously difficult human achievement, but I do think humans did do that. But when you're starting about like major structures, 2,000-3,000 feet underground, now I don't know. It's like if that's true, how the hell did they do that? We can't do that. I mean, Jesus, with 21st century technology, we can't do that stuff. I mean, yeah, we can go down 2,000-3,000 feet, maybe in a little capsule or something like that. We drill down that to get oil and stuff, but to build down there, and I don't think, based on what I know about the geography of the Earth, I don't think that was I don't think that was at ground level, like even 40,000 years ago. I don't think so. You know, I mean, I've told you about this. There's this, and this has come up in. I was talking to a friend of mine who's she is a of the Wicca religion, and I've talked. As a matter of fact, she was on a previous my public television show. She was actually a guest. I've been trying to kind of get her to come on here to talk about Wicca and just paranormal stuff in general. But she said I've talked about this very famous example, and matter of fact, Steve Mayer and I talked about it too, the paranormal investigator from the UK when he was on a couple of weeks ago. There's a place in England, there's a house out in the middle of some field somewhere, a farmhouse, that supposedly, if you're in the basement, not the first floor, that if you go down to the basement, you will regularly see a Roman army marching right through you. And hundreds of people have apparently seen this. But it turns out the reason it happens in the basement is because 1,000 years ago, the basement was on ground level. That's the reason. So and this is what's called a residual haunting. And what that means is that two different types of hauntings. So you have an interactive ghost and you have residual ghosts. So interactive ghosts are ghosts that will actually mess with you. They will talk, they will communicate with you. They'll knock stuff over in your room, all sorts of crap like that. The ones that are kind of playful are called poltergeists, and then some are, you can name them anything you want. I don't really know. But the thing is, yeah, they will actually interact with you. A residual haunting is like a videotape that plays over and over, where the people that you see don't interact with you and do not seem to be aware of you, that they play out a scene over and over again. And this is, and of the two types of hauntings, these are the second one. The residual haunting is the one that's more recorded, or more reported, I mean. People see these a lot, and no one can explain this because there's one theory that somehow the walls of a structure end up recording this in some way, and which is a reason it seems to happen in particularly old buildings, but not necessarily. There are new structures where this happens too, but I think as a general rule, it happens in older places. And so you got this basement in this farmhouse in England, and yeah, so you got them, and it turns out the people have seen this, have described you stand there and this army will literally march right through you. People will literally march right through you. And you will see they're surrounded by them. And the people who have experienced this have described the soldiers' uniforms, and they're basically perfect Roman soldiers from like roughly 1,000 years ago. And of course, you realize the British Isles were taken over by Rome by the Italians about 1,000 years ago. They were occupied by the Romans. So this is not it's not surprising that that would happen. And you're talking about people who know nothing about history at all, let alone the vagaries and intricacies of what Roman soldiers wore. And they describe these soldiers, and apparently it's a perfect match for what their uniforms were like 1,000 years ago. And so you just wonder what's going on. It's just really weird. And I now I can't even remember why I brought this up. I I don't know. But anyway, I'm hoping my friend Jody comes on. I really am, because she's a very interesting woman. I ran into her at a party last weekend, and yeah, she's very cool, very cool person. And you can be a cool person too. Call me up 325 call Jim 325-225-5546. And you know what I want to talk about now? Now I want to talk about the train wreck, which is the movies. And I'm talking about all the movies. And I'm not talking about Netflix. I'm talking about theatrical run movies. Nobody goes to the movies anymore. They don't. And there's a guy named John Nolte. He's the columnist for Breitbart. And this is kind of his thing. He's harping on this all the time. And of course, the reason this made the news now is because of what happened with the Snow White redo that Disney just related. It completely bombed, and it looks like it's not going to recover. They spent $275 million filming this movie and another $70 million to promote it. And they're not even going to come close to getting their money back, even worldwide. No one's going to see this. And supposedly, this movie got an enormous amount of bad press. And Disney has now turned on their star, Rachel Zegler, because they said it was because of all the crap she said during the publicity tours, including the fact about freeing Palestine, about the fact that Trump supporters are evil. And this is the one that really cuts. Her co-star, Gal Gadot, is Israeli, and she was basically putting down her for supporting Israel. So even though they've gone out on press junkets together, they've always been kept apart. They do not interview together because apparently as you might imagine, Gal Gadot did not take kindly to this. So she basically ended up alienating everybody. Now they're trying to blame the failure of this movie on her, Rachel Zegler. And like Nolte said this in his column, you can go to Breitbart and read this today about the fact she'll probably never work in Hollywood again. She won't, because the fact of the matter is she did do all this stuff. But whether that's the actual reason people aren't seeing the movie supposedly, I haven't seen it, but supposedly it's really, really bad. It's way worse than anybody expected it to be. I mean, the trailer got a lot of views on YouTube, and the trailer apparently wasn't bad, but the movie apparently is really bad. And then you're thinking, and Nolte doesn't have to bring this up. I've been around the entertainment business all my life. You're thinking, how could you spend $270 million and make a movie that's shitty? How the hell does that happen? And this is the part that actually just blows my mind. So they filmed the movie, and they originally used 7 actors as the quote unquote dwarves. So in the original version of the movie, they didn't call them dwarves. I can't remember what they're called, but basically they're like 7 weirdos who are following Snow White around, and they all got their droopy or they're sleepy or there's something, but they're not dwarves because they don't want to insult the little people community, right? Okay, so people saw this, and apparently this did not fly at all. This tested terrible. So Disney decided they had to redo it. So now you'd think, well, at that point, wouldn't you just get some little people actors to actually play the real dwarves? Nope, no, we're going to CGI the dwarves. So you got a real live action movie with animated dwarves. What the hell? Whose idea is that? I mean, seriously, you just negated the whole idea of having a live action movie. What the fuck? And then on top of that, so the little people actor community is really complaining because 7 actors did not get jobs. And God knows they should, and so Disney is so concerned about insulting the little people community, they didn't hire the little people actors. It's like the whole thing. I mean, this whole thing is completely messed up. Totally. Well, I haven't seen the movie, like I said, but everybody who's seen it says it's an absolute stinkeroo. That's awful. And you can only blame Rachel Zegler so much that the word has gotten out that this movie really, really sucks. So, well, Noti was writing about this today, and I can't remember this guy's name, and I should have wrote it down about it. There's a guy who covers the movies from a kind of a data point of view, and the entertainment industry would like to tell you that the COVID pandemic killed the movie industry, but that's not true because there have been a certain number of movies that have done extremely well, like Top Gun, a couple of the Marvel movies, not all of them, but some of them. And that's the other thing too. Even though the Marvel movies, the ones that are good, people go to. The ones that are bad, they don't, and so they bomb. Well, duh. It's like, isn't that the way business works? Isn't that the way the movies business has worked for 100 years? Yeah. If your movie sucks, word gets out really, really quick. So, they're trying to blame this on the pandemic, but Nolte says this himself about the fact that the exceptions to that prove the fact that the pandemic did not kill the movie business, because if it was that, nobody would go see any movie. But there have been some movies that have done extremely well. Oppenheimer, Barbie, it's like there's a list here, I mean, both Oppenheimer and Barbie ran against each other, and they both did extremely well at the box office, made a lot of money. Two really good movies. I haven't seen either one of them. I haven't seen I don't know if I'd go see Barbie normally, but apparently, even though there was some social justice preaching in Barbie, it was still a pretty good film. You were able to overlook it. And not only that, I guess it kind of fit the plot too. So, what the heck? It was fine. Oppenheimer was essentially a historical documentary, basically, a fictionalized documentary. So about the first atomic bomb, which I do want to see. I've always wanted to go to Trinity Site, and Trinity Site is the place in Arizona where they exploded the very first atomic bomb. It was a test. It was the first test. It was the only test, as a matter of fact. They only had 3 bombs. So, and this, so we dropped, August 1945, we dropped a bomb in Hiroshima and blew the city up. 270,000 people, I think, got killed with one single bomb. And then Truman turns to the Japanese and said, had enough? And the Japanese said, no, we're not giving up. So then they dropped the bomb in Nagasaki, lost another 250,000 people. And then finally, Japan said Japan threw in the towel. But the real amazing thing about that story, what Japan didn't know, we didn't have another bomb. If they had said, no, we're not quitting, we wouldn't have been able to do anything. We had 3 bombs, and we wasted one on the test in Arizona at the Trinity Site, and they didn't know what was going to happen. There was a minority, but a sizable contingent of physicists that thought this bomb might blow the whole universe up, that it would start a chain reaction that would never end. There were a lot of people actually thought that, and so, excuse me, what happened, the bomb was more powerful than they thought it was going to be. And it was not by especially by contemporary standards, let alone by then, it was not a very big bomb, but it did way more damage than they thought it would. It was the megatonnage, which is measured by megatons of dynamite. It was considerably bigger than they thought it was going to be. So, I mean, the whole story is fascinating. I haven't seen the Oppenheimer movie, but I know that's what it's about. It's fascinating in real life. I don't know if you even have to fictionalize it, so I've always been kind of a science geek, and something I'm really interested in. I've always wanted to go there. They open it 2 days a year, and I can't remember. I think in April and July or something like that. Matter of fact, this year I think I marked it on my calendar because maybe I can get my ass there. Of course, I can't. But and the reason they only open it for 2 days of the year, it's still radioactive. It's been, what is it, 1945? You can do some math. What, 80 years? It's been 80 years. The radioactivity of that site is still way above background. They won't let you stay there for longer than 2 hours. for that very reason. So, yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, they only open it twice a year, and you can't stay more than 2 hours because otherwise you might get sick. So 80 years later, yeah, go figure. But they didn't know what they were getting into at the time. You know, they didn't know if it was going to work. They didn't know if it was going to blow up the whole Earth. They didn't know anything. So they tested it, and well, the Earth didn't blow up. So, but the Japanese got their, um, got handed to. So, so at any rate, so yeah, so yeah, Disney's Snow White, and then the other thing is, why do you want to remake a classic? What's the point? Can't we just let things go? I mean, just the fact that they have to remake all these animated movies, to me, it's like, can't you come up with something new? Well, one of the reasons they can't come up with something new is because something new costs a lot of money, and then then you're risking a lot of money. But they thought they had a sure thing here, and they screwed it up. You know, the next biggest failure in the live action animated sequence series that Disney's done was Dumbo. Dumbo did pretty bad. This is already doing worse. Dumbo did not work. But so I've never seen Dumbo. I've never seen any of these movies. I got to be honest. I don't watch much fiction anymore. I'm just not interested. I don't read fiction books. There's so much fascinating stuff going on in the real world. I say I don't want to take my time. And it's not that I'm not going to tell you that that fictionalized movies are bad. I mean, in some ways, the dramatic movie industry in the U.S. is basically like the opera industry of Italy of the 19th century. I mean, that's basically what it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that fiction literature is bad. I know a lot of friends of mine who are writers. It's a legitimate art form. I know that, but it's just like I only have so much time in my day, and so I just don't do that stuff. That's all. That's where I'm at. Hold on just a minute here. All right, I'm going to close on this. If you're not going to call me, screw you people. That's the way I look at it. And this came out, believe it or not, in the JFK files that were released a couple weeks ago. But one of the files is about, and this concerns JFK, and I'll tell you about it. I know the thread here, but I did not know this, and apparently nobody else did too. And that is that in 1962, the a U.S. Navy fighter shot down one of these uh, silver metallic spherical orbs that people see flying all over the place. They actually shot one down and retrieved it, and that was the thing that JFK finally apparently the inference was that that's what made him realize that UFOs are real. Because I've talked about this before. This is not a speculation or a rumor. This is an actual verified fact that 10 days, I think it's actually 12 days before John F. Kennedy was killed, he signed an executive order. I don't know the number, but it has a number, like all the rest of the real ones. He signed an executive order ordering the Pentagon to start exchanging information with the Russians on UFOs. There's some people who think, I don't think it's that compelling a thing, but there's some people who speculate that's the reason he was killed. Because this is, this new movie that's come out, Dan Fahar, who's done this movie, The Age of Disclosure. These guys are saying this has been the biggest single secret in the U.S. military in the last 80 years about the fact that the UFOs are here. And I'm like, that's no secret. I knew that. And it's like you could sit here and Jim's a crackhead. He thinks the UFOs are here. No, just come to terms with the UFOs are here. Okay. It's like I can't tell you where they're from. I can't tell you who they are. I can't tell you what they want, but I can tell you they're here. We have plenty. It's not even plenty of evidence. There's a preponderance of evidence at this point. It's just we know there's so much evidence that the aliens are here. It's not even funny. So just wrap your mind around that, okay? But so JFK issued this executive order. 12 days later, he's dead. I don't think that's the reason. I still think it's probably the Bay of Pigs and the CIA. I still do. man, they hated his guts, and you kind of don't blame them. I don't know how many guys got lost in the Bay of Pigs. It's not even the people that were killed. The people that captured were relentlessly tortured. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. If you ask some people in the CIA, this happened because JFK refused to send in the aerial support that he promised. That's what they will tell you. So they looked at it as an affront on his on their mission and a stand on leadership. That's the way they looked at it. So I think that's why it happened, and that's what the best evidence I can draw is that people agree with that. That's the reason. I do not think it was because of UFOs, but still, the timing is very coincidental, isn't it? You know, and yeah, JFK at that point knew the UFOs were real. He knew in 1962, 1963, they knew that. So, you know, here I'm sitting here, what, 60 years later, you're not gonna, you know, I still know they're real, you know, and you should know too. So I don't know if the president's going to stand up and announce it. I don't know that. There are a lot of people who think Trump will do this before he leaves office, mostly because they think he's an egomaniac and wants to get credit for it. And God knows, okay, fine. I don't really care, you know, but, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I can tell you just plain out, and we talk about it on this show constantly. I have guests on a regular basis. The aliens are here. Get used to it. That's all I can tell you. So, and how do I know that? The only thing I've ever said I know definitively is that the United States has retrieved at least half a dozen and probably 9 or more crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. And if there's extraterrestrial spacecraft, that means there's extraterrestrials. That's the reason. I don't know anything else. I don't know if Eisenhower talked to the aliens. I don't know if why the aliens are coming here. I don't know where they're from. I mean, I have some speculation. If you ask me, it's more than one group of aliens, more than one species, and they're all of different advancements to us. I mean, some of these. Here's another thing you have to wrap your mind around. These species of extraterrestrials are anywhere from 200 to 2 million years ahead of us, and they're all coming here because we set up off an atomic bomb, and that was like a freaking alarm clock to the universe. All of a sudden, oh my God, they know what's going on. That's the dividing line right there. You figured out the atom. Okay, fine. Okay, so now welcome to the club. Well, not quite, because I don't know if you noticed this. Stanton Friedman said this, and he's absolutely right. We kill each other a lot. We're not exactly the most peaceful species in the universe. You know, it's like we kill each other and we're dumb. And that's not because we haven't figured out how to fly faster than the speed of light either. We just do stupid shit over and over again. Have you noticed? I mean, God, look at our government. It's like, oh my God. So, yeah, that's the reason they won't talk to us. That's the reason. No, we're idiots. And with that, I'm going to leave you. Yeah, I want to thank Larry Newman again for talking to him tonight. Great discussion as always. Tomorrow night, Lee Richardson, psychologist from Dallas, head and founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. She's joining us for her last of her. We've done 3. This will be the 3rd of 3 Thursday night interviews about her upcoming book called Crisis Brains. And we're doing this one live, so you can call in and ask her questions. Same number, 325-CALL-JIM. You guys should call up more while we're not on the air, just so I can hear what the hell you're doing. So, or to insult me or whatever you want to do. You got 2 minutes. You can fill that time up. You can do it. So yeah, that's 325-CALL-JIM. You want to do that. And so yeah, Lee's on tomorrow. I got to admit, I don't know who we got coming up this coming week. I don't. I'm still working on it. We're still figuring stuff out. We do that though. That's what we do here. We figure stuff out. At least we try to. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching.